There aren't that many units that deserve their own video, but Aatrox definitely had it coming. Initially, the interesting part of his ability was the conversion rate of attack speed into AD, and abusing chem mods like Robotic Arm to make him powerful. But this does not work anymore. Nowadays, the focus has shifted more onto his Darkin Blade. When Aatrox dies, he possesses the closest unit to him, granting them bonus HP and Omnivamp. His Omnivamp scales with ability power, which is why you will sometimes see him with Rabadon's Death Cap, since the increased Omnivamp will remain for the possessed unit. But the goal of this video isn't to focus on AP items, instead I want to focus on weird interactions with his Darkin Blade that are likely not intended. You might have already seen the Mythbuster, where I went over his interaction against bel'veth. When bel'veth kills a possessed unit, then this unit will not leave behind a mark for her to consume because of Aatrox reviving. This only works for units that are empowered by Aatrox. He himself will leave behind a mark if he gets killed by bel'veth. Something more interesting involves the Crown of Demacia from the House Lightshield region. Normally, when a unit with this item dies, you immediately lose the fight. However, if Aatrox is ready to revive, when this effect occurs, then he will prevent you from losing the fight right away. I mean, your units still die, but there might be some fights where he could do an epic last stand. Unfortunately, not every interaction gives you an advantage. In fact, you really want to avoid the upcoming two. Let's assume you're playing Zorn and you have the unstable chem tank. While it's not as relevant in set 9.5, it can still be a powerful chem mod. Yet for some reason, Aatrox seems to interfere with death mechanics. If he possesses a unit and that unit dies before the timer hits 4 seconds, then everything is working as intended. The problem arises when the 4 seconds are over and Aatrox will revive once the unit dies. He will now override the unstable chem tank and the explosion will not trigger at all. Similar to the bel'veth example, the game doesn't register if the possessed unit dies and therefore it can't trigger any on-death effects. This can be further proven in our last example with the Shadow Isle Rise. You probably haven't seen him in a while, considering this region doesn't show up very much. He will mark low HP units and those units revive once they're taken out. At least that's how the interaction is supposed to work. Once you add Aatrox, he can mess up everything. Similar to the previous example, when he jumps to a unit and that unit was tagged by Rise and survived for 4 seconds, then Aatrox will return, but the unit will not. Truth to be told, Aatrox and Shadow Rise have some pretty weird interactions if you combine them. I believe it was possible to spawn an infinite amount of Aatrox, but nowadays the game will simply kill off your current Aatrox on the board if another one revives. You can also receive an invisible Aatrox, but thankfully the enemy units are still able to target him and win the fight. So to sum up, Aatrox is a bit of a messy unit. If there are some other interactions that I missed, then feel free to add them in the comments and I might end up doing a follow-up video on him. I hope you learned something and see you next time.